Hello, this is National Chess Master R. I'm here for Team 4545 League, analyzing a game between chiiwen and Chatica. This was played in round 5, and this game was selected as Game of the Week, and it's a very entertaining game. I have a request, I've posted it before. If you nominate a game for Game of the Week, please save it to your library. That way I can get the original times. This game had disappeared from both players' history, and I can still create a game score, but I don't have the times to discuss. So anyway, often we can discover a few things that go wrong or because one player played too quick. Well, I can't do any comment like that. So in the future, if you nominate a game, save it to your library. You can get rid of it after the round is over if you don't have room. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, Dutch defense. Looks pretty standard so far to me. But now it starts going into something usually kind of peculiar. Okay, normally Black isn't so energetic this quick. With the knight out, he's going to try the maneuvers Queen E8 and Queen H5. And then try and catch up the rest of this development. The knight will come up to c6, maybe the bishop to d7, so the rook's connected. Then Black tries for an e5 push. That's Black's basic strategy, and White makes sure he doesn't get checkmated, and he just continues his development. Anyway, it goes off into a tangent here. Let's see what happens. Okay, so now the whole theme of attacking on the king side is gone. Okay, so for what it's worth, this is what we have. And then White tries to undermine the Black center, and Black comes up with this interesting move. The pawn on e3 is weak. Now White spent some time going back to b1. Might it have been better on b3, you say? Well, then Black's going to take a pawn on c4 and tempo that knight further. So White's going to have to spend some time recovering everything. He's got targets. He'll get them back. It's certainly possible, but Black has play of his own. Bishop can go to f6, and you're on d4. So it's needless to say, it's a very complex line. So White goes back to b1. Now he has time to take the pawn and cover d4. And see, there's Black on it. Now, here the knight's going to still make its way over to win back that c-pawn. He's doing it from a3 rather than a5. Okay, so let's take stock here. Who's better off? I think White's better off here. And the reason I say it is because White's ahead in development. White's got 3 minor pieces out. Black has 2. Black can develop his piece, bishop d7, but that bishop doesn't have a whole lot of scope, at least now, and Black has a weakness, a pawn on e6. So seems to me White survived the opening. Okay, but now they're going to get this pawn, and now White starts some counterplay. Black had given up a pawn, now he's taking it back. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so still, even though I was saying White's slightly better, it's still close to even. But this is the problem child for the Black position as I see it. The pawn on e6. Now, here's an interesting move. Bishop d7. It entails potential sacrifice of this pawn, which White's going to do here. What could have White done other than taking that pawn? I mean, it's nice to grab pawns and all, but what does it do for your opponent? Black's kind of suffering for development, as I was saying. Well, White doesn't have much going with his queen side. His queen and rook are still on their original squares. But why develop your opponent's pieces even for a pawn? If I'm White here, and I want to finish my development. I want to get my pieces out of the box. I want to make sure that my pieces have some threats. or can get to squares where they can make some threats. That pawn on e6 is not going away. You know, the first logical move I'm thinking of is something like queen d2. Okay, the point of queen d2 is it connects the rooks, and then white can then decide, does he want to put one of his rooks on d1? Which one? Who knows? Or maybe he wants to put the rook on a1 to c1. Have rook on c1 and one on d1. But when you develop, good things happen. It takes time to capture pawns. You know, it takes the tempo, and then you got to get that critter the heck out of there. That's another tempo. So white's got a slightly better game if he just plays queen d2 here. But he snatched the pawn, and now black goes through a little bit of maneuvering to win his pawn back. And let's see what happens as a result. See, now look at this white bishop on g2. Look what it's done. It went to b7, it went to e4, d3, and now c4. Okay, that's what it's done. And if there's some indirect pressure on e6 now, I mean, that looks great. But if you think about it, that pawn on e6 wasn't going anywhere. Black couldn't push it to e5 to try to get rid of it. And here's white legging in development still. The queen and the rook aren't out. And black suddenly, his rook, which wasn't developed, is suddenly much more active than the white counterpart. So I think black's come out the better out of this. White's only compensation is he won the bishop pair, but without his development completed, that's not going to do him much good. And the bishops need squares, need diagonals, and right now there's none really all that open. There's some pressure on the a2 g8 diagonal, but black can cover that. Okay, so let's see what happens. Let's chase that knight out of there, and black comes up with this really good move here. I'm sure white didn't see it coming. Knight e2 check. I mean, this is the kind of move you say you can't play. It hangs a piece. Okay, well, watch what happens. Okay. Now, white's got some problems. If he moves his queen, he can put it on b3 or a4. Black's going to get his piece back on e2. And that rook is just a nuisance. I don't know. Let's see. Queen b3. Let's take a look. Okay. Black's down a piece he has to take. And I guess want to take that with check. If not now, sooner or later. Now look at the white rook on a1. It's under attack. And why is it under attack? Well, it's under attack because white went and grabbed a pawn, and in the process lost his b pawn because that black rook developed. That opened up that diagonal for that bishop. White could have covered b2 just fine with my recommended move of queen d2, and wouldn't have had to worry about all this. And looks like black's going to get his pawn back. Where's white put the rook? Go attack the queen, I suppose. Oh, what's black do? Well, he can develop his queen. What's wrong with queen a5? And you know, it can be kind of double-edged here. If e4, bishop can come into d4. You know, maybe even give up the exchange. Let's see. Let's look at this. Okay, if you take with the rook, you're going to walk into a pin. So, okay, do you dare take with the king? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe this is no good for black. I don't think so. Okay, so, but still, e4. You know, the idea is to play e5 and chase that bishop out of there. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, but maybe this is playable for white. Let's see. Where's the bishop going to go? Can always go to c3. It's a nuisance in the white position. You know, look at this. Black's got all this infestation into the white position. I mean, who wants to play this as white? You know, I don't. It's complicated. You know, you can always in a 45-45 league game, you know, you get into something tactical, and you're going to consume a lot of clock time making sure you didn't mortgage the farm and drop some material. Okay, so let's go back. So white comes up with an interesting reply. He just gives up the queen. Okay, now he picks up the pawn with check as wish and sug. And now what's happened? White, in effect, what we have is material equality. If you look at the next to the names, the point count chess, pawn count chess says 21 points each. A rook and bishop and a pawn are supposed to be worth a queen. It's my experience in practice, though, that in this kind of position, the queen is usually worth more than the rook, bishop, and pawn. And that's simply because if the board opens up, the queen can do more things by itself, where the rook and bishop take one move each, to do equivalent things. Move the bishop, then move the rook. Well, black just moves his queen around. Black has a passed pawn, but white can blockade it. White probably shouldn't lose this with correct play. He's got a very bad bishop on f2. He's got to get active. But if those bishops can get open, maybe white's okay. Let's just see what happens. Brings the queen out. And there's just a little bit of jockeying and maneuvering around here. I guess white doesn't want to play e4. Doesn't going to save that bishop. But excuse me, I'm not tired yet. I yawned. Okay, they're just kind of maneuvering, zigzagging back and forth here. But at least now white's got his pieces activated, except for the bishop on f2. And but that rook's a nuisance. White should think about trying to get rid of it. He can't play. He could play bishop e1 here. That makes sense. That probably gets the rook off the 7th rank. What's black going to do? If he plays the nice square to keep it on the 7th rank, oops, we got bishop d3, and I think the rook's. Where's the rook go? I guess it doesn't, or black's got to counterattack or something. I mean, it can get sticky, but that's one thing about having two bishops. You want to get them activated. And since white was forestalling playing e4, what's wrong with bringing the bishop back the other way and getting in the game? So this seems to chase the rook off the back rank, or off the 7th rank. So I don't know, I'll put it back here on d7, just batten down the hatches, just in case white comes up with something creative. Maybe he's got threats of bishop a6 and rook b7. Doesn't mean they work, but it's certainly a threat. Something to entertain black and make him consume some clock time. But you see here now white has his bishops developed. I don't know. Can you play bishop a5 and chase the queen? Where's a good square for this bishop? The black counterpart is holding this diagonal pretty well. It's done its job. It's gone back to, if anything, it's like I say, it's done its job. It's evicted the rook. We can just bring it back to f2 and try to look for a way to get this in at some point and get the bishop activated on this diagonal. But let's get to the position. Instead, white kind of fumbles around a little bit. And was white threatening black threatening anything? Oh yeah, he wanted to play queen h3. Well, so what? Let him just chase him out. But it could get tricky. Maybe not. When the queen comes to h3, black doesn't have time for rook takes f2 to undermine h2. But still, we should think about chasing that rook out of there. Now white's left his a pawn loose. Now he's trying to activate his rooks. Black blocks the file. So, it looks reasonable, but that rook on c2 is just a nuisance. And here white goes, well, let's see, now he comes back. And I don't know, white shouldn't mind that move. Just let him take. It opens up new diagonals for the bishop. But here I think white's starting to get greedy. Black gets his position activated here simply because that rook on c2 was never chased out. So let's see what happens. Now Black gains a critical tempo on the rook, and now the queen's coming into play. Queen wants to go to f3. Queen wants to do a lot of things. Wants to go to h2 mainly. Look at that. h2 is in trouble. What are you going to do if you play bishop e2? Queen comes into e2. Ouch. And white can resign. So white comes up with this check. Now he weakens his position a little bit. g3 is a little weaker now than it was. That's going to play critical here in a minute. And I'll look at how Black's infested the white king side. Two bishops and a king are defending a queen and a rook. That's just not enough firepower. And the rook on e4 is loose. Got to deal with that. And now just go to the back rank. Attack the bishop. It's really what's white going to do? That seems to lose a piece. See, bishop f2. What do you do? If anything, you just park the queen on d1, and something's going to fall here. Yeah, those two bishops are just no match for a queen and a rook. So basically, game is over. They play on a little bit. Now the pawns start falling like a house of cards. And then here, it looks like, oh, discovered check, we win the queen. Well, we don't. There's a pin. See this rook on e1, it's pinning. So white's down a queen for a rook here, and really no hope. They just play on a few more moves. Ouch. Only way to guard it is to do this. And white decided that's enough. I'll give this one up. He's down the queen for a piece. So there's an interesting move, knight e2 check, and the queen did prove to be the superior one, as I forewarned. In practice, I think they do very well. So be careful if you give up the rook, minor piece, and pawn for a queen. Okay, and I thank you for your time, and take care. Bye.